Ian.
Interesting.
Is this word association? Do I give you a word? Mother.
No, we were joking that this is going to be a therapy episode, so I figured I'd just lean into it right off the bat.
Gotcha.
Expand on that.
And how does that make you feel?
Yeah. Hello, Dave.
How are you, buddy?
I am well, and I'm excited for tonight's little show.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. I'm Dave, therapy patient. Mm-hmm. You're Ian, therapy therapist.
Yes.
And today's office, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is
this here Google Meet space?
Yeah. And I mean, really, the seats of a brand new Nissan Z.
Yes, that is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk. We drove the Nissan Z a few weeks ago. We haven't gotten to talk about it yet. I was super excited to drive it.
Yeah, as was I.
Yeah, we both were. And we had very different, I think, initial reactions to it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into my reaction to it in a minute, but I want to start. Go ahead and just open up the Dave Don't Look folder.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Dave
and just share a browser tab with the people so they can see what we're starting with.
Okay. All right. Comfy Dave is the title of this picture. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that is me. That is me driving. That is my neck turtling back into my body.
Yes. Now, people who are just listening, this is a picture of Dave in extreme discomfort. Like, he is not happy about this situation. And anyone who can see the picture might think that this is a pose. This is a candid photo that I took of you driving.
Yeah. This is because initially it felt like the Nissan Z was rejecting me like a bad kidney transplant.
Yes. But I think you warmed to it. So let's just start. So the new Z is kind of it's more of an evolution of the old Z, the 370. It looks fantastic. I think but we agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Yeah. You took some great pictures of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We took some pictures out at Red Rocks. Oh, it looks so good in that blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the way it looks. And even though it's got some old bones underneath, it still is Nissan through and through. It makes all sorts of cool turbo noises.
Mm-hmm. And
it retains a 6-speed manual, which is pretty fantastic. And 400 horsepower. Like, it's just on paper, like, those looks great. 400 horsepower, rear drive, 6-speed.
Right.
Boom.
Right.
In.
Yeah. You have us hooked, right?
Yeah.
Like, we read that and all we see is good time, mm-hmm. Happy fun time, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so we got in the car, and you drove first.
I did drive first. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was your just initial, like, you buckled the seatbelt, first thought?
I mean, this really the comfy Dave pick. Like, I mean, you know, it's not necessarily made for a 6'4" individual. And so I kind of went through some emotions of being a little let down because it was a difficult fit. And I think there's a couple factors at play here, right? Like, it would be one thing if this was, say, like a Kia hatchback, right?
Right. If it was a tight fit and it was a little front wheel drive car with 200 horsepower.
Right. Then sure, okay, whatever. Like, it doesn't really mean anything to me. But the potential of this vehicle, the potential to be the 8th owner of one of these vehicles. I mean, right. it's like when you make a bad impression on somebody the first time you meet them, right? Like you've got lettuce in your teeth and a big grease stain on your shirt, and you spill coffee onto them.
Right.
I felt a little bit like an outlander. Oh God, I knocked over my microphone. And like you think like, okay, well maybe like it's just some seating stuff, like going through the stuff, because I liked everything I touched and saw and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, well, this could be kind of like a more difficult Miata experience for me, right? Because when we had the Miata hardtop, I mean, I don't know if my body is still the same after trying to contort it into that, right? And then there's
this has more room than the Miata. Just to be clear.
It did, right? But I mean, like you can see in this picture, my legs are straight up against the steering column, right?
Yeah.
And so I also went through like some weird emotions as far as like, do I feel entitled because I think I should fit into every vehicle, right? And so it was this weird mixed bag. And then you add driving a 400 horsepower twin turbo car for the very first time that is not yours on top of that. Boom, go.
And on a tight, twisty road that it was probably not where it wanted to be.
Right.
Yeah. I will say, I think I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think you put yourself through a lot there. Mm-hmm. Some of it not necessary, like do I feel entitled because I don't fit? Like you're fine to feel frustrated, if you don't fit in a car. But I did notice, like, physically you fit better in the car as you relaxed. Right. Like you physically changed your seating position and got more natural in the car, which, by the way, if there's one complaint about this thing, it is that the seating position is incredibly awkward.
Right. If you have to unpucker your butthole to even remotely be comfortable. Right. Yeah.
It is physically an odd fitting car.
Right.
But I think some of it for you was just, you were just nervous and you were just,
sure.
So that compounded things,
Right.
Right. Yeah. But you went through such an arc in like 20 minutes, because we only had a half an hour with the car, or 40 minutes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
We had about 20 minutes each. So you in about 20 minutes you went through like all the stages of grief.
Like the car broke up with me, right?
And then I want to say, like, in the last like 3 miles of the drive, I feel like you were legitimately enjoying it.
Yeah.
And sort of changed your mind a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's an amazing car. Like, I think that there's no way that you can walk away from driving it and think anything but that, really. I mean, there are times, and I think that we'll get to this later, I think that there's times over Nissan's history where they Nissan the shit out of something, right? Like, where you're like, okay, like, you're the Nissan that I remember and want you to be, right?
Yeah.
And I knew that Nissan was doing that with this car from moment one, right? The looks, the things that we read about, like the touch surfaces inside, the interior, like, Nissan has a lot riding on it, and they do not take this shit lightly. Like, they're not the kind of company that is going to put out an EV version of a car and give it like a fair lady name or something like that, right? Like what Ford did to the Mustang. Like, they hold shit really precious in that company, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Infinity names are a whole other thing, but yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It was an intimidating experience, and I think you're absolutely right that when I learned to unpucker myself and probably not sit directly upon the handbrake, it turns out you fit a lot better in the car, and I really did. I was able to enjoy it for what it was. At the end of the day, is it something I could comfortably fit in and drive? Like I treat my Fiat as like a fun errand car and autocross car? No, unfortunately, I couldn't do that.
Right.
But I feel like I saw the light, and I enjoyed it for what it was in that moment, and recognized that it unfortunately it's not going to have a place in my life, but it is a great car. Yeah. It
is really, really cool. It's unfortunate about the seating position.
Yeah.
Because it is a little awkward no matter what size you are.
Right.
But yeah, they Nissan the shit out of that drivetrain, and that is what dominates. Like once you get past the comfort thing of figuring out how to reach things and not have a steering wheel in your chest or whatever, like that engine just dominates everything, and it is spectacular.
It really is. And I think that one thing that I was that I really looked forward to in experiencing the car with you, because I think like you and I experiencing cars on our own is one thing, but seeing it through each other's lenses adds a whole nother thing to these automotive press events that we go to, right? You know, like seeing the way that you enjoy a car is something that I really like, right? Like, and vice versa, right? Like we get a kick out of how each other interacts with stuff, right?
Yeah.
And
I get a kick out of pressing all the buttons while you're driving.
yes. And I get a kick out of, just figuring out that you're looking for an HDMI input while I'm trying to figure out how to turn off the hyperdrive, right? The thing that I was looking forward to was the exact thing that I knew that you would do. And the exact thing that you do whenever we sim race is that you're just in and you're fucking sending it. Like moment one, right? Where I drive like a grandpa and then I get to like good driving, but you hop in and you fucking go, man. Like, and I love that because this car definitely let you do that.
Yeah. Let's get to that because I have some thoughts here because it's like a warm embrace of old school driving. Like it reminds me, the car that it reminded me the most of, honestly, was my dad's. My dad has like an '07 Aston V8 Vantage, and it behaves a lot like that because it feels kind of bigger and softer than it is, but it feels like a point to point. Do this like you kind of like arrive at a corner, slow way down, go around the corner, and then just mash it and go. And it feels dramatic and special when you do that. Like it doesn't take away really from it feeling special because that drivetrain is so special.
Right.
And even like the feel of the shifter and everything else is just, it's very, and the position of it and the cab and everything is very V8 Vantage. And the proportions and everything else. But like it wasn't as like sharp or as hard as I was imagining. And I realized a few weeks later that like the only other Z's I don't think I've ever ridden in or driven a stock Z. I've only ever ridden in modified ones.
Okay.
So I was expecting something like stiff and sharp. But that's
gotcha.
This is a GT, right? It's not a track car.
Right.
And it didn't handle like a track car, but that was okay because it's not what it's supposed to be. And it took me a minute to like figure that out.
Yeah. I now that you call out the sharpness, I think like looking into it, that's something that I thought would be there, but wasn't. It felt like kind of like a V8 Mustang, but in a better way. Right?
Yeah.
Because like the when you accelerate, the nose picks up a touch. Like they haven't like engineered out like all of that kind of stuff, right? Like the twin turbos kind of behave more like a V8 than they do a twin turbo V6. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and it's dramatic. Like everything you do is really and that's part of what makes it feel a little bit special. I feel like that.
Yeah,
it's like an old school turbo car, but it has none of the drawbacks of an old school turbo car. You know,
right?
Like,
right.
It makes all the whooshes and the things, and I mean, the noises it makes are fantastic.
Yeah.
It could be a little louder, but you get a lot of induction noise, which is great.
Yeah. And
I don't hate the way that it handles. I read after we drove it, I read some reviews. And they all pretty much had the same sort of feedback that I did, which is that it was very soft feeling. Mm-hmm. And especially on that little tiny road that we were on. We drove this back to back with the Civic Si.
Yeah.
And the Civic Si mopped the floor with this thing on that tight road.
Right, right. Yeah, that was the scalpel, right?
Yeah.
Where this was the hammer. Yeah.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think the more interesting comparison is actually this versus the Integra. Because
right.
They're close in price. The Integra has 2 more seats. But they're sort of... They feel similar in like the suspension tuning and stuff. Right.
In that soft but still capable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, beyond the seating position, and maybe it's just because I'm so like Stockholm syndromed into my 500 Abarth, like, seating
with infinite headroom.
yeah, right. Like, how did you feel like you meshed with that vehicle over our experience with it? Like, could you see yourself owning something like this? Talk me through some of those pieces.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I could. I mean, we didn't get close to the limits really of this thing.
Right.
But I don't know, I was able to it seems like a car you can just jump in and be immediately quickish in. Like it's not so fast that it's really intimidating or scary, and everything communicates pretty well. Like everything feels, all the inputs feel really good, even if they're out of reach or too close or whatever.
Right.
And it's like the formula is familiar enough that you're like, okay, I've driven this before, even if you've never driven a Z before or this car before or whatever, you've driven something similar to this probably. Yeah. Yeah. And you could figure it out quickly.
Right.
And it didn't feel like the electronics were too intrusive or anything like that. Like you could learn your way around that. You could start from a really good base, and then learn from there.
Right.
And that's everything, right? If you're confident in the 8/10, then you have someplace to start from.
Right. Know? Yeah. It feels like a vehicle that would grow with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Like as your talent came up, the kind of like the capabilities of the vehicle would not necessarily present brick walls, but kind of like more gentle things that you would learn to work with, right?
Yeah. And let's be honest, the mods that you would do would be part of that. You know, like that's what these things are all about.
Yeah.
And I mean, man, this thing is a blast. I love it. Like it's silly and dramatic, but like it's not overly serious.
Right.
It's a lot of fun and it feels special. And that's what I cannot, like the 86, the 86s, right? The Subaru and the Toyota, they are super fun cars. Mm-hmm. They're just a blast to drive on a track. They're a blast to drive on a mountain road. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even talking about the speed of them. other than that category being rare, they don't feel special.
Right.
It's, it's a buzzy little Subaru engine and drivetrain, and nothing about anything else feels especially special about it, like the interior is cheap or whatever. All that is what they're supposed to do, and that's
right.
fine.
It does what it says on the box, right? Yeah, it has its place, and we're very thankful that it's there, right?
Yeah. But I do think that this thing, the way that it drives, especially the engine, it does feel special.
Yeah.
Which is a rare thing these days. That's even rarer than a 6-speed manual,
Yeah.
Just feeling special. I mean, that was the thing that got me with the Giulia, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we've recently talked about how, the Toyota GR Corolla is a vehicle that, like, you can see replacing your R32.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is in the running, or does the lack of all-wheel drive just instantly cast it out?
I think the lack of back seats casts it out.
Oh, yeah, true.
But yeah, I mean, if I could have a 2-seat car, I mean, it would be this or a used Cayman, probably. Those would be the two things that I would look at. But this thing is fantastic. It's awesome.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah. It is. I don't know. Like, I mean, I feel like I've experienced like what I think is a peak Nissan product, and that's the Infiniti M45. Like, I feel like that like Nissan Infiniti threw everything into that vehicle. Like, just the fucking sun visors were a wonder of engineering, right? And like,
that was sort of a last vestige of old Nissan, right? Before the Renault merger and all that other stuff, right? Like,
yeah, right. 2006, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like V8 up front, 5-speed, automatic, like all the luxury, every tech thing that they could offer at the time, and like, and it felt like, especially with that body kit on it, it felt like it was special, right? Like that, like you didn't see a lot of them. You saw a bunch of M35s, but whatever, like that's the not special version, And I definitely got the same feeling from the Z, right? That like Nissan'ed it. And you're right. This is a special car, you know? Yeah. It's, I don't know. I like, if you want to hook me into a car, you give me a nose that picks up a little bit. You give me some body roll, right? Like, like you need like I still ride steel frame bicycles, right? Like, I want some analog feel, like I've played an 8-bit video game in the last week, like I don't need everything to be crisp and exact and 4K and perfect pixels, right? And this car's not, and it doesn't need to be, It's great as it is. Like, it's a perfect vintage stereo system. It's a, right? Like, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, with some solid state upgrades.
Right? Yeah.
They've got some modern technology in the turbos and everything else. And it's a really, really cool combination.
It is. I wish I could fit, but here we are, Yeah. I don't know. I think if you are looking to advance your motorsport game, like, this is a great platform, I feel like, to look towards, like track days, autocross, doing things and like learning, like growing your talent as a driver. Like, this is the paintbrush for your canvas, right?
Well, and if you were comfortable in this car, you could crush some miles in this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the seats were pretty good. And I was, by the end of the day, I figured out a comfortable seating position.
Yeah.
I do wish there was more adjustability in the steering column and the seat.
Yeah.
And at least, like, it's not like the pedals are offset. It's not like an Italian thing where like
They
pedals
didn't
are
make
offset from thing.
like axis sacrifices.
Right. It's just the steering column does not telescope.
Right.
And it's an odd combination of like length to pedal and length to steering wheel. And it's just really hard to get comfy.
Pulled up the picture of Comfy Dave again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pedals are pretty far away and the steering wheel's pretty close.
Right.
So it almost encourages you to like lean back a lot, which is not my first instinct.
Me neither.
In a car.
Yeah.
And I think is that what you ended up doing? Did you end up kind of giving yourself a little more?
Yes. Yeah, lean back. Yeah. Because I mean, I grew up driving pickup trucks, right? Like you're in Missouri.
Bolt upright.
Yeah, that's what you do. You want the wheel in your chest, you want to sit upright. And, and then skull shows up in your jean pocket.
Right.
Like it's, so it was weird. That leaning back, odd. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can see in this picture that I put myself, in a position where the wheel would be closer. Obviously, that didn't work, No. Yeah.
It's like you look like you have little T-Rex arms.
Yeah. Somehow, if the airbag deployed, it would hit me in the testicles and the forehead at the same time. Yeah. It's tough. But yeah.
Yeah, you got there eventually. And you know what? Yeah. So I do have an FMK cars based around your sort of ramp up to comfort.
Okay.
Because I think that we've had some other cars that we've done on this Rocky Mountain driving experience thing that we've done for a few years now, where you've had similar initial reactions and then varying degrees of getting into it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You might notice a theme with these.
Okay.
They're all stick shift and rear wheel drive.
Okay.
All right. So the first one is the 2023 Nissan Z.
Okay. All right.
What we're talking about here.
Yep.
The second one is that 2018 Chevy Corvette Grand Sport.
Yeah.
Which I believe was the most terrified I've ever seen you when I was driving it.
Yeah, that was like the Carbon 65 or something. Yeah, Carbon 65 edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very scary, especially when I floored it and both of our heads hit the seat backs so hard we basically shat ourselves.
Well, and that's the naturally aspirated one, and we were at like 9,000 feet or something of elevation.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine,
right,
what that's like at sea level.
Yeah.
Pretty fantastic. And then the last one was that Bullet Mustang.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
The Bullet Edition Mustang. I think it was 2017. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, like the 2018 maybe. Yeah, this bad boy, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And I think, So FMK those. Yeah. But also, I feel like of all of them, I think you were most comfortable in the Mustang, right?
I was most comfortable in the Mustang. Yeah. Yeah, I was the most intimidated by the Corvette, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. FMK, these three. The thing, well, first of all, the Mustang's green. I'm into that, right?
Right.
And I think the thing that you and I kind of picked apart about it was the whole nostalgia, right? It's like, why does this have to be the thing, right?
I'll allow you to debad to get rid of all the bullet stuff if you want.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Then it's just a delightful green GT.
Right. There you go. I think I probably would marry the Bullet Mustang just because I really like the way it looks. I like the way it sounded. Hearing it off those canyon walls was great when we were driving it. And I feel like if I had this Corvette for more than an hour, I'd just turn into pink mist. I mean, I feel like that with the Corvette, I feel like I don't have the talent, like the driving acumen, or like I don't feel like the right kind of person to have that car, right? Like it just doesn't vibe with me, right? Like I think we're on different wavelengths, you know? And I think like if people like, I don't know, if people knew how I felt getting out of the car, they'd be like, oh, cool. Oh, it's him. You know, like, I don't know. Like if it feels almost like a little bit too much like the person that brings their own pool cue to the pool hall, and you know.
And there's this whole thing with and there's this whole thing too with Corvette owners and track days of like they're the people who are just like monstering the straights and super slow in the corners because they don't know how to drive their cars. They bought something that was way too fast for them,
right?
You know, and all of that. Like, so that's definitely a thing with these cars.
Sure. Especially
as they've gotten faster.
Yeah.
So you'd be in good company.
I mean, I did have a pair of white New Balances at some point. So, you know.
See.
Yeah. I think I'd have to buy some jorts. Yeah. I don't know. I think I might have to kill the Mustang, or kill the Corvette. I think I might have to kill it. Yeah.
And then what are you doing for a day besides covering yourself in Crisco to shove yourself into the Z?
Yeah.
What are you doing for a day in that thing?
I think that I'm going to start by not driving the Z. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be in the Z. I'm going to like have my morning coffee in the Z.
Okay.
My wife and I will play Wordle in the Z in the morning.
Just get comfortable.
Right. Like just kind of like make it like part of the environment that you're existing in. Right.
Maybe some whale songs on the stereo.
Pure moods, thank you.
It was all
right. You know, I think I would certainly take my time, right? Yeah. This is the slow roast, you know, instead of the flash fry, because it was definitely flash fry when we experienced it before, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is that's not how normal people interact with these cars. They're not like, okay, you got 20 minutes, go. You know, right. It's we're gonna spend some time. We're gonna get to know each other. You know,
right?
Especially with performance cars, like you're not gonna, you know, other than maybe a test drive, it's not how it works usually. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think I would marry the Mustang. You know, and I think it does come down to space for me with the Z, because if I could fit in the Z with a helmet on, it would be the Z hands down, you know?
Yeah.
It really would. If you take my goofy size out of it, Z hands down, hard marry.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. What about you, buddy?
I would crush the Mustang.
Okay.
I would marry the Z. Because I feel like even though I would have more, for a day I would take the Corvette to a track and just
absolutely
track day, right?
Yeah.
Obviously,
just roast the tires.
Yeah, I mean it would be a blast and scary because it'd be super fast and whatever, but just to try to work up to the limit over the course of a day in that thing, I think would be a ton of fun. And a huge learning experience. But this I feel like is a longer term partner. Like I can grow with this thing, I'd mod it, you know, I'd want to like make it my own. And that's the other thing, is that, you know, that like the subtext to all of this with this car is that there's going to be a massive aftermarket for this thing. So you're going to be able to make it whatever you want.
Yeah.
Aside from maybe 6'4" friendly.
Right. Yeah.
But everything else on the table.
aftermarket got you, boo. Right? Yeah.
Right. And that's pretty exciting.
Right. Yeah. It is. It is. Right?
Yeah.
I know firsthand how difficult it is to have a car that has a very limited aftermarket, right? Because, the Saabs, like the NG 900 Saabs and the, Saab 93, the Vigans, there's really only a couple, outlets and places for parts. You got Nick Taliaferro and Springfield and stuff like that, and they're doing great stuff. They're making great parts, but like, you don't have the variety. You don't have a whole bunch of people looking at it from different angles. It's a little bit more open with the Fiat, but the M45, I couldn't even find a fucking sway bar for that thing. Nothing.
Right.
Right. All I could find was like people like those like crazy grills that people throw on, like the weird like super chrome aftermarket grills for like $700. It's like, that's not the aftermarket I want for this car,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I bet in Japan there's probably a lot of like people doing like VIP builds and stuff on those, but
Yep.
probably not a lot of semi-performance
Right.
road car type things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So to go from like that kind of stuff to like the world is your freaking oyster with this car. Like there's going to be so many companies making so many great things for this, and it's going to drive like so much great competition. Like the Z's always been an incredible platform, and it's something that's always drawn the aftermarket to make things for it. So yeah, it's just going to happen again and again and again, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Man, really liked our time with this thing.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ian, I have an FMK cars for you.
Oh, double FMK cars.
Double FMK cars, Ian. In thinking about this car, obviously, we kind of think about the arc of Z's overall. Like, do you remember when you kind of like first realized like Nissan Z's were a thing?
Yeah, it was definitely the 300ZX.
Okay.
I remember seeing the 240s and 280s and stuff around, but the one that I remember being actually like really like what I need to know everything about this thing was the 300.
Yeah.
And I remember always every time I would see one, like trying to look in the back, see is it twin turbo
or not, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And just being obsessed with it. Like,
yeah,
it was this, the Mitsubishi 3000 GT.
Yep.
The Prelude a little bit, like
FD-RX-7.
Yes, definitely. Although I was never as much into the RX-7 for whatever reason. Okay. It was this and the Mitsubishi were the two that I was like obsessed with. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I've always thought the 300ZX was super cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's always been my favorite of that era.
Yeah.
Of the cars that we got.
For sure.
And then, the 350 came out like right around when I was probably 19 or 20. It came out. So that was a big thing too. Like I remember the first time I saw one, and it was I stopped the car and turned around and drove back to the dealership that had it because I hadn't seen one yet. I was in Michigan at the time, and they weren't around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's been my and then Gran Turismo, right?
Sure. Yep.
That's my kind of relationship with them. What about you?
Yeah, I'm just a touch older. You're in your late 40s. I'm in my very late 40s.
30s.
30s. You're
40s.
In your late 30s, and I'm in my very late 40s, mid 40s. So, but yeah, my first kind of like the Z's that I saw were the previous generation 300Z, right? Like what is this generation here?
It was the 300ZX. It was the 300ZX over 2 generations, but it was the second gen that I was like,
right,
that I remember. you know?
Yeah. And I remember the first, right? Like, seeing it on TV, seeing Paul Newman racing,
Right.
like kind of having that be in the background, knowing that was like a thing. Like seeing those and then like stepping in exactly like where you were, like second gen 300ZX, Gran Turismo. I remember one of the things that I was so fascinated about with the 350Z launch was Nissan seeking out older 240Zs and restoring them in-house. Remember that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, to celebrate the launch of the 350Z, Nissan went out and procured, I think, 20 some odd like original 240Zs in varying conditions, and they restored them all in-house. I don't know like what they did with them, but like they threw their full Nissan at it and restored those cars, and so then there would be a lot of, I think a lot of it was for press, like pictorials and articles that showed like the full evolution of the Z, like where it started, a pristine example, and where it is now. So many people shared their stories of like when they were a kid, they went with their parent to buy, and their parent bought a Z, and now they're looking at Zs to buy themselves, and having that kind of that story. And
the context of all that too was that at the time, like in the late 70s, the Corvette and the Mustang and the Camaro were all junk. Like they were terrible cars.
Yeah.
And then these guys come along, and it's not a tiny little MG, it's an actual like regular sized sports car.
Right.
That you could shove a child into the back of if you needed to.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Jalopnik has an article about what happened to all the Nissan Zs that were restored in the 1990s.
Oh, wow. This is a Mike Spinelli article from 2014.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that. Yeah. Wait, let's read it aloud on the show.
Yeah, let's. It's Dave and Ian read an article.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting seeing like the arc of Zs over time, and this FMK cars I think follows that arc. I will say that dream guest on the show, if we could ever get them, Heather Ann Campbell, writer for Rick and Morty, actor. She's done Whose Line. She's brilliant comic actor. She has a incredibly badass Nissan 280Z that has been restored and upgraded, and it's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A good friend of another dream guest of ours, John Daly. Yes. So they occasionally talk cars on Twitter, and so that was how I think that we kind of came into their car orbit, pop culture wise.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Ian, I'm going to give you 3 Z cars with a twist. All right.
All right.
Okay. First up, Ian, here, let me copy and pasta some of these links. First up, Ian, I am going to give you a Paul Newman 280ZX race car.
Hell yeah.
Okay? Paul Newman's butt sweat and maybe other fluids were in the seat of this car.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
And these were built for IMSA, I believe, right?
Yep, IMSA racers, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, just like when you think of kind of like the racing that I happened across when I was a kid on TV, this is what was happening, right?
Oh man, super cool.
I was born in 77. This was racing in the 80s, the 70s and the 80s, yeah. So yeah. I mean, privateers would buy them, race them. Yeah.
This is when he was racing SCCA.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will give you this brilliant beautiful Nissan 280Z race car.
Okay.
The twist is, Ian, have you ever seen Cool Hand Luke?
I have. Oh, no. How many eggs do I have to eat? Is that what it is? Is that what this is?
Before you take this to the track, at some point within 24 hours, you're going to need to eat 50 hard-boiled eggs.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know the story, like the behind-the-scenes story about the hard-boiled egg scene?
I don't think I do.
Okay, so like obviously he didn't eat 50 fucking eggs, when they were filming the movie. He ate about 8, right, total.
That's still a lot.
Yeah, it's still a lot of hard-boiled eggs, right? And the cast and crew ate the rest of them, and they said that the next day on set the flatulence level was just absurd. Like nobody could handle it because everyone was farting from the eggs the day before.
Just sulfur.
Yep.
It's just terrible. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that's urban legend or not, but like I've seen that a few times over time, right? Okay, so 24 hours. You don't have to eat it right before the race, but you've got to eat 50 eggs at some
within
point.
24 hours of my track day.
Yeah, within 24 hours of your track day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And if it's an endurance racing weekend, I'll give you 48.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now,
can I just like have a little tube from my butt back into the fuel tank? Like I'm guessing like a little extra methane injection would help.
Sure. Yeah. We could do that. Yeah.
Yeah. A little extra horsepower. Little tooty toots.
Yep. Exactly.
Tooty toots, scoots.
Or if it's cold, you're racing in a cold environment, you just have your own hot suit.
Yeah.
Right? You just like duct tape off all the openings and you'll look like one of those like fat suit sumo guys. Yeah. It's just full of farts. Okay, so there you go. There's your Paul Newman race car. Okay? All right, so second, Ian, have you ever seen the movie Blind Date?
I don't think I have.
Okay, this was a movie, I mean, of the era when I was growing up. I think I saw it at a pretty inappropriate age, because it came out in 87. I remember seeing it pretty early on, on HBO. And so I was probably 10 or 12, right?
Okay.
Yeah, probably 12. It's a Bruce Willis movie, Bruce Willis and Kim Basinger.
Okay.
And the plot of it is that Bruce Willis is set up on a blind date with Kim Basinger, and he's given a warning not to get her drunk. And like his buddy's like, because she gets wild, and like, but it's like, seriously, don't get her drunk, right?
It's like
and
Gremlins, like don't feed him after midnight sort of thing.
Exactly, right? So what happens, right? Exactly. So it's this whole thing, and here's Bruce Willis's car in the movie. This is probably one of my earlier experiences with seeing a Z car. It's a white Nissan, the first gen 300ZX.
With the T-tops and the whole thing. With the
T-tops. Pristine. And like in the movie, Bruce Willis has just gotten the car. It's brand new. He loves the car. You can imagine what happens, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because here's a scene from the end here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're going to have this car, okay? And I'm going to be your Kim Basinger, all right?
Okay.
You have been warned not to give me taffy, all right? Because I get wild.
So I have to keep you away from sweets.
You have to keep me away from sweets when you have this car, okay?
I think I'd rather eat the 50 eggs, to be honest. Okay.
I'd rather you eat the 50 eggs. All right. Lastly, Ian, all right, I'm going to give you a 350Z from the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. This is Takashi's car, played by Brian T. in the movie series, right? Drift King, or DK, as he is known. And here we go. Let's see here. The 350Z DK car. Here it is right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it the Fair Lady Z, right? Which it was because it's JDM, right? So the catch with it, with a pretty sweet wide body kit, right? The catch with this one, to remain true to the film, is that anytime you're in a parking garage, someone is going to show up and try to drift race you.
Yeah.
Okay? You're going to win. They're going to crash their car, right? Just like I can't remember. It wasn't Han, I don't think, but yeah. So yeah, it was Han, right? Yeah, in the Sylvia.
No,
right?
it was the kid who, the main character, right? It was the
Sean.
Yeah.
Sean. Yeah,
who was
he
there
had
with
Han's Sylvia.
the 40-year-old high school kid in that movie, who was there with his dad, who was stationed there. Right.
Yes. So you're going to win, but then you have to take the person that you beat under your wing for an automotive event. Okay?
Right. As you do.
Right. As you do. Okay?
Oh my God. Okay. This is tough.
This is your Nissan movie tie-in.
Yeah.
FMK.
I'm impressed that you found 3 Z-Car movie tie-ins. That's pretty good.
I mean, the Newman one is just like, well, Newman did these movies and also raced these Z's. So that one's the most tenuous one. The first thing that came to mind was Blind Date. Yeah. Not a great movie.
No.
No.
You know, my favorite movie with a Z-Car, because I'm just going to stall instead of answering this, is Safety Not Guaranteed. Did you ever see that?
Yes, I did, with Duplass.
Yeah, Mark Duplass drives an old 280Z in that.
Yeah.
And it's like a thing where he gets made fun of in that for his crappy car. And Dwight in The Office drives a 280Z in the first few episodes in the first season before he moves to the 3rd gen Camaro.
Trans Am. Yeah.
Trans Am. Oh yeah, Trans Am.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Takashi.
Yeah. I'm crushing the 300ZX blind date.
Well,
I can't keep you from both. Like, I don't want to keep my friend from the one thing in life that gives him such joy, but also physically, I don't think I could keep you. I don't think I could physically restrain you.
We would wind up wrestling way more than we ever wanted to, which we've never wanted to.
No. And you have reach on me.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't go well. And also, I've seen you hangry before. I think if it was we had both had, if you had coffee and sweets and you were in like a good mood, I think you would have reach, but I might have speed or whatever.
Yeah.
It would be a close fight. You hangry though, it's like the Hulk. Like, I'm not gonna fuck with that.
Or would I just be like, go ahead, pin me, I don't care, life is meaningless.
Right, it's gonna be one or the other.
Yeah.
Or sometimes both, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so that's gotta go.
Okay.
That's gotta go.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna marry the 350Z.
Oh, really? Okay.
Drift King car. I can't eat 50 eggs every time I drive this car. So I'll do the Paul Newman 50 eggs things once.
Okay. Well, yeah, what would you do? Would you want to do like an endurance race? What would you want to do with this car?
I'd want to drive it probably how he intended it. Like maybe in a sprint race, or an endurance would be the most fun because you get the most seat time. So maybe probably I do an endurance race. The dream would be like 6 hours of spa in this
right
thing, or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be pretty. That would be pretty badass. Like one of the, or take it to Goodwood. Like that.
Yes,
would be,
there you go.
Something like that. Some sort of vintage endurance race thing.
Yeah,
would be what I would want to do, and then just tooting and being sick all over the place.
I'm glad you didn't pick like some kind of like off-road event where you'd want me to co-drive, and then I'd be stuck in the car with you and your toots.
Bouncing, it was just bouncing toots out of me. It'd be not good.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. What would you do?
I mean, I love eggs. What would I have to keep you from in the blind date scenario? Oh, I would have to keep you in the car every time we drove past a record shop.
Yeah.
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 Are you looking at Discogs on your phone?
I add it to like a mobile version of Pi-hole that I have running. Yeah. I think I would have to kill that first gen 300Z. Okay. Just because I think either bookends are just so much cooler, right?
Definitely.
Like, yeah, I think I would wind up marrying the Takashi's 350Z, right? I mean, it looks incredible. It looks hilarious, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then definitely for a day, I'm bringing you with me for an endurance race. You're going to be my instructor, and you're going to have to bring it all in. Yeah, you're going to have to breathe it all in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah. There you go.
I'll come with my own ventilation tube. Well, that was delightful. I do want to bring one last thing up with the Z talk, which is that, my kind of closing thought here is that it was just you kept saying this, and I think you're totally right that they Nissan the shit out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And man, how nice is it to be in something that was Nissan'ed after how many years of them making just, I mean, honestly, pretty dreadful rental cars.
Mm-hmm.
Like things that were just made to be commodities.
Yeah. Appliances screwing up Infinity so badly. Yep.
In all the ways that they did that.
Yeah.
I mean, this was such a relief, even though they, whatever complaints you want to have about it, that they borrowed stuff from the 370, or that it's old technology or whatever. It still feels like a breath of fresh air in the context of Nissan's lineup over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. The thing that I keep going back to about it is like, it feels like it's a band that's had a really spotty history. And then they just finally put out an album that just fucking nails it.
Right. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. It's like, oh, they went on this fucking jazz odyssey back then. Like, oh, they produced a Broadway musical. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. And then finally they deliver. Right.
I actually have a good analogy for this, and you're not going to be with me on it at all. But just trust me.
Yeah.
Flaming Lips.
Okay.
They had this classic period, right?
Sure.
Where they were making stuff that was really very pretty. Like, for what it was very pretty. And then they went on this weird odyssey of making this like really discordant sounding, very odd stuff for like 3 or 4 albums. And then just like 2 years ago in 2020, they released a new album, American Head, I think it's called. And it's like, it borrowed a lot from the period that made them good, but it was a new, it was a new product. Like, it felt different, even though you could pick it apart and be like, oh, well, this is from that and this is from over there.
Okay.
I mean, it's exactly what this is, right? Where, oh, you can look at the parts of the chassis that came from the 370Z, and you can look at the bits of the interior that came from wherever, blah, blah, blah. But it still, as a whole, feels new and special and different, but still recognizable as a Z car. And that's exactly what that Flaming Lips album was like. And so it's a cool, I don't know, it's a cool thing when it happens.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
It's like when Fernando Alonso is 40 years old and like, you know, qualifies third or something, you know, like it's, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Our expectations weren't rock bottom, but you know, it's nice to see you hit it out of the park. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely. And
yeah,
it was good to see them do it on their own without borrowing from anybody.
Yeah.
And just see them Nissan something again.
Right?
You know?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I think we Nissaned this episode.
I think we did. Ian.
What should people do if they enjoyed this?
You know what? I'd love to hear people's experience with the Nissan Z cars over time. So yeah, if you want to drop into the YouTube comments, or you want to send them to us on Twitter, we'd love to hear like just how you've somehow intersected with Nissan over time and the Z cars, whether it's Gran Turismo, anything, right? Yeah, because I think it's very in car people's lives. It's been a pretty constant through line, right?
Yeah.
Love to hear that stuff. So drop into YouTube or hit us up on Twitter and tell us about that kind of stuff.
You can also give us a call or text us.
Yep.
720. Oh God, I blanked. What is it?
Ian?
315?
No,
513?
Ian, it's 720-515-1391.
Thank you. I don't know.
East of the Rockies,
lost it.
the same number. West of the Rockies. Yeah, Justin in New Zealand, same phone number. International data rates may apply.
You can email us, apexadjacent@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Dave, this was delightful. Everybody, we love you. Thank you. Goodbye.